What's going on, guys? It's your boy Anthony back with another edition of the Fourth Man Podcast, and we're here. We're leading up to the Big Three. This is being reported on Wednesday, June 21st. Is today the 21st? June 21st. We are about 4 days away from the Big Three season opener for season 6, and it's an exciting time. It feels like a long time coming. The rosters are solidified, the matchups are set. And we got a couple of great guests on this episode, as you can probably see from the title. But before we get into all those, as always, make sure you're following the show on social media at Fourth Man Pod, on all social media platforms. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube to get the visual version, as well as any other upcoming content. YouTube.com/fourthmanpod. Make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell. And thank you to our partners and production company, Believe, for always allowing us to have a platform to talk about Big Three and share updates and storylines and anything Big Three basketball related with you guys. But as you can see from the title, we have two great guests. So we have a writer from the Big Three and Jon Krolik. And we also have the Big Three, it is the Big Three, the Ball Hogs CEO, Uncle Jon himself, joining us on the show. So we got one that's a little bit more objective conversation, just talking about the league in general. And then we got one a little bit more specific, talking about Ball Hogs and not only what they're doing on the court and playing to, expectations are on the court for the Ball Hogs this year, but also get to talk a little bit with Jon just about some of the initiatives they have off the court and how they're continuously trying to bring more awareness and more engagement to this league year in and year out, especially in their second year. Like, they've just done a phenomenal job. So appreciate both these guys for joining the show. Not a ton of news to catch you up on. I did want to mention that the Big Three is planning to have 5 artists perform at the season opener. I'm kind of thinking that Ice Cube's going to come on, kind of be that 6th artist, but maybe it makes sense to have 5 because then it's like in between each game. I don't think you'd probably want one after the final game because it's not really like a transitionary period anymore, obviously. But it was announced that Chance the Rapper is double booked that day. So Chance the Rapper, unfortunately, will not be playing at the Big Three season opener on Sunday. They jumped the gun a little bit, and that's unfortunate. But I think Cube's trying to find another artist. If not, I mean, the man himself is a legend. So, like, if Cube has to perform, that's definitely not a second. It's not a bad, second option there. But would have been really cool to see Chance the Rapper. Do get to see Twista. Do get to see a few other artists that maybe I'm not as familiar with, but definitely putting on for the culture. Maybe a lot of you guys, you're a little bit more music buffs, might know. Should be a great time. I mean, again, like I mentioned this on the last show, you're getting a ton. You're getting 6 different games. You're getting 5 different artists performing for the price of 1 ticket. So it's a bargain. It's a steal of a ticket. And hopefully a lot of you guys get to go out there and see the show in action. I mean, it's a party at the end of the day. It's going to be lit. It's a ton of different games, ton of different shows. But other than that, not a ton of news to catch you guys up on. And we'll be dropping, hopefully, if I haven't already, by the time I've dropped this episode, we'll be dropping predictions. We'll be scarily dropping some power rankings, trying to catch up on some highlights that I've been trying to work on leading up to the week. I'm a little bit behind on those, but other than that, no more news. Let's get to our interviews with Jon Krolik and Ball Hog CEO, Uncle Jon. All right, so different perspective today. We've had players on the show. We've had coaches on the show. We've even had statisticians from the Big Three on the show. But today on the show, we have writer and journalist for the Big Three, Jon Krolik. You've probably seen a lot of his published work on the website, and a lot of that published work is by this man himself. So thank you again for coming on the show, and welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So just so our audience can get a little bit more background on you, obviously they've seen a lot of the work that you've done on the Big Three, I'm sure, whether it's just a column about a certain player, you're giving your updates on the league. But what's your background really as a writer, and then how did you get started with the league?
I started writing about basketball when I was in college. I started my own blog back when that was a thing to do, and that got picked up. And I had ESPN had a bunch of team blogs, and this is all the way back in 2009. So I got the one about the Cavaliers. So back when they were a pretty big story. So I covered them for a while, and then from there I worked for NBC for a while, New York Times, Slam Magazine online. So a bunch of places before I went to law school at Tulane. And then then some work I did some work after that, and had just kind of been freelancing and was looking for something, and and the league reached out, or me and the league came in contact with each other, and we liked where each other were at. So I started covering the league during last season and a little bit after, and now I'm back for this season.
Nice, nice. And so with the big three, is this something that you have been maybe like keeping up with from afar? Obviously, being a basketball writer, you've probably just kind of in touch with everything that is basketball. There's a bunch of different leagues out there, just like it seems like there is in the world of football. Is this something that you watch from afar, had any interest, or just maybe came across it one day?
Yeah, I mean, I would say my interest was more casual, but I was definitely aware of the league, and I watched a bunch of the games, and I really liked what they were doing. So by the time the contact was made, I was definitely very excited.
Nice, yeah. It's cool to see too, like a bunch of these like spin-off basketball leagues, kind of in a sense. Like there's a ton of those in football, obviously, with everyone trying to assert themselves in the spring league and trying to be the main spring league. But it's cool to see it in a basketball fashion. Now we've seen the big three, we see the basketball tournament. They got slam ball coming back, so that really excites me
I saw
because
it,
it's
yeah,
still that niche here in the summer. But
absolutely.
yeah, 100%. So this is your second year covering the big three. Give me some of your takeaways and some of your thoughts from covering the league year one, just having a different perspective there.
I think it's a really exciting time in the league. I think specifically we're going towards where the best players in the league. This is kind of the biggest thing they've done. We're kind of getting guys in their prime who are at the top of the league now. Like the guys I would say are on the top of the league now would be like Isaiah Briscoe, Kevin Murphy, Glenn Rice Jr. All these guys did not have huge NBA careers if they did, and are in their primes. Briscoe's only 27. I think Glenn Rice Jr. is just 32. Um, and so instead of guys, I mean, obviously when the league came out, it was guys like Allen Iverson were sort of the big draws, or that was the big name draw. And then even Rashard Lewis has been MVP. Joe Johnson's sort of the greatest player in the history of the league. So you got a lot of guys with really distinguished NBA careers, but now we're seeing the big three as a place where guys are making a name for themselves on the back of what they've done in the big three.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. And I like how they like coupled it with some of those big names as well. Like you mentioned Rashard and ISO Joe, obviously, but even two guys like Gerald Green, Michael Beasley, just adding a couple of guys who maybe a little past their prime, but more so still have a lot of game, could still be contributing for an NBA team probably, but are getting the chance to showcase themselves, and us as fans and viewers, and maybe for an even nostalgic purposes, get the chance to still watch them on a week to week basis in the summer.
mhm. No, and I think the level of talent in the league, even if the names are a little smaller, I think the there's just not enough roster spots anymore for someone to get a roster spot based on their name and maybe what they used to do if they're not still keeping up. Everyone in the league is very hungry and very good. So I think
Yeah.
just the overall level of play is getting really up there.
Yeah, and I think too, it used to be one of those things where like you try to get all your friends together and you wanted to just kind of like have a chance to play with each other. But now it's gotten so much more competitive, especially over the past, I would probably say since 2019, that season that Joe Johnson emerged and really became, that quote unquote like best player in Big Three basketball history. But it's been really exciting to see just the new additions that they've made to this league week in and week out, or year in and year out. And even this year, like there wasn't a big name draw as you were calling it, but like just the bringing back Joe Johnson, who has historically been the best player in this league, I think was a huge gift for the big three in season 6.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think Reggie Evans and Leandro are coming back. Obviously, they're coming back from big injuries. So
Yeah.
we don't know to what extent they will be all the way back, but those are some great, great players.
Yeah, 100%. I was really scared for Barbosa last year, tearing his thought he tore his Achilles at the time, but I guess maybe it was just a strain or something. So good to see him back, hopefully in an action and with a better Ball Hogs team. I wanted to ask, just like from your perspective, this is your second year covering the league. To be your first year actually getting to cover the league while they go back on tour. We saw a lot of success within the big three before COVID when the league was going on tour and just them getting a chance to go from city to city. Now they're getting to bring that back. What kind of impact do you think that it will have on the league this year and really another pivotal year for the big three?
They were on tour last year, weren't they? It was just kind of smaller venues.
Yeah, I would say it's
Um,
been kind of like a uh, bubble arena for the past couple of years. Like they've been playing at like a couple of different venues, but just getting the full-fledged tour back.
I think it'll be great. It should be super exciting. I mean, there's obviously just a different energy when you get to different size buildings, and well, one thing about the Fireball 3 format and the way the Big Three does it is they're really good at building up energy. There's never a shortage of noise going on. Even for this first week, I think like Chance the Rapper is going to play in the and some other guy and some other acts. I don't want to do that, but yeah, I think that it's a super energetic and fun experience. And I think with more people, that's going to get magnified. And I think seeing that on TV is going to make people want to go.
Yeah. I think getting some acts will be huge too. Just having like not only 6 games in one day, which is already a bargain, for like however much the tickets are, but then maybe getting like 5 or 6 artists as well. Probably seeing Ice King perform potentially at each venue. I mean, that's a steal for a ticket. Like you can't beat
Yeah.
that.
No, I mean, for a million reasons, the one it helps to have, a legendary musician be the founder of your league.
No doubt, no doubt. Let's talk a little bit about the rosters and even just talking about, how the season might play out leading up to week one. First off, there's been a ton of changes at the captain position. We saw Aliens and Power kind of make some new additions to their team. Power adding Akil Mitchell, and then Aliens adding another European member to their team, Kosia. I think I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, but Kosia Mushidi, the young guy being added to Aliens. And then two from like teams like Ghost Ballers and TriState, they went out, TriState went out and got DeSean Stevens from Aliens. Ghost Ballers went out and got Jonathan Simmons from 3 A Monsters. What do you feel like is the biggest move from a captain perspective? Like, which one do you think might have the most impact this year for a team?
I think it's going to be DeSean Stevens going to TriState. With Jason Richardson and Justin Dentman, that team, one of the articles that I did last year was sort of which teams were most on the finesse side, which team was most had the most power. So that I sort of did that by like offensive rebounds, shooting percent, and then like 3-pointers on the opposite sides. And Tri-State was all the way on finesse. Like they were super 3-point dependent, and they were great at shooting it, but they would just kind of get killed on the boards. They would kind of get beat up inside a little bit. But in DeSean Stevens, he was so good last year. I mean, I mean, as much as we like to talk about, and rightly so, the Aliens being, this European influence and bringing all that FIBA stuff. DeSean Stevens was, especially later in the season, kind of making that team, was the MVP of that team on both ends. He's just got those crazy arms, and he's such an athlete. He plays so much bigger than I think he's like 6'8" or 6'9" his listed height, but he plays so much bigger than that and then he's so quick. So on both ends of the floor, he's just a huge game changer, and I think he's one of the best big men in the league. So adding that to a team who is so good on the perimeter and lacking just a little bit inside, it really feels like a perfect fit, and that Tri-State could be right in there. With Trilogy, with Power, with 3-Headed Monsters.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that, they missed a lot of Larry Sanders last year at Tri-State. And so adding, someone who, availability is one of the biggest abilities to have for sure. And DeSean Stevens, I felt like each week he was putting up big numbers, like you said, for Aliens and really making them go, especially like late down the stretch. I felt like Aliens was running out of a little bit of gas, or teams were kind of figuring out their style of play. DeSean Stevens made it work because he was a little bit unpredictable, but he was always going to bring a lot of energy.
Yeah, exactly. I think I felt the exact same way, that Aliens sort of took everyone by shock in those first couple weeks, and then they started to figure it out. And then later in the season, they were playing sort of, I guess, more conventional 3-on-3 basketball. But DeSean was just so huge. So just on pure talent, they were able to match up with anybody.
Yeah, he's one of those guys too. I felt like if he was a little bit younger, like I think more NBA teams would take a look at him, like him being like a super athlete and maybe like kind of like developing his skill set a little bit later in his career. Maybe like hindered like his chance at a real shot at the NBA, but I still think even he could potentially get a look. But I think if he was a lot younger, he'd get a lot more looks. I mean, what do you think on that end?
Absolutely. It is very different. Fireball 3 in the NBA, so you don't. I mean, it was thrilling. Sure. That was one of the most exciting things of last year when Elijah Stewart had his huge game and got that summer league invite. So you never want to speculate about something like that, but that would be so thrilling if the Big Three became a place for guys like DeSean Stevens, who maybe developed a little bit later, or just things didn't really line up when they were maybe in college or had their draft opportunity, to get on national TV and to get in front of a lot of guys with NBA connections, if they're, former players, former coaches, current coaches in the cases, Leandro Barbosa could be a guy. He goes right back to his day job. He's the assistant coach of the Sacramento Kings,
Yeah.
And there are a lot of guys like that, but we have a few assistant coaches
Yeah.
who are active players.
I think Corey Brewer is with the Pelicans, which I always kind of like just try to put two and two together and think maybe that's how Elijah Stewart got in contact with them. But yeah, I think you're right there.
So that would be a thrilling thing to have happen. And again, it's as the talent level of the league gets higher. As paradoxically the names get a little bit smaller. These guys are really hungry, and a lot of them are playing the best basketball of their careers, and a lot of them have long careers.
Yeah.
He's one of the guys I was looking at one of the rookies, Shannon Shorter. He has played on I think 5 continents, and for like in like more countries than I can count.
Crazy.
It's just these guys are, and he went to like 3 college. He was like a junior college guy, I think, but I could be getting that wrong. So these guys are just so hungry that we have in this league now. And you see it, the product, the actual basketball is better. It's the best it's ever been.
Yeah.
And so to go back to the tour thing, it'll be very exciting to show that post COVID, I think this level of play in the Big Three and how serious everyone's taking it for bigger audiences to see that will I think be really exciting.
100%, 100%. And speaking of Shannon Shorter, and even just speaking about teams in general, we just had the draft. There was 10 new additions to the league, 10 vets added back to the league, which kind of just shows like how important it is to show your level of play like each year. Because one, you don't know if you'll be on a team again next year or with the same team next year. But two, there's options for other teams to maybe pick you up as a co-captain or pick you back up through the draft. But we saw 10 new additions within the draft. Teams are solidified now. Who do you feel like was a winner in the draft, and who do you feel like was the biggest loser in this draft?
I don't want to pick a loser. I think a lot of teams stood just because I don't think anyone added a bad player, so that would
I don't
be
either.
a weird thing. So, but I think the big winner again was TriState grabbing DeSean. Although one interesting thing about the league, I guess so, the loser would then I guess be Aliens. Although they clearly, I think their thing is that they're going in a kind of going all in on the European thing. I think they've got one American-born player on the roster this season.
Yeah.
So I think for almost any other team, they would have put captain status on DeSean.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, Aliens got Alonso Gee late in the draft. Big three vet who's been in the league for a little while. I think he's proven his worth. That makes a lot of sense. But yeah, like you said, I think they've gone in all in the European style. And like you mentioned, Tri-State, yeah, just adding Devin Ebanks, I think was a huge win. And then Ray Nixon, getting him in the second round of the draft, after his, lights out performance to end the season. I feel like kind of just, making that statement run at the end to let you know, like, hey, this is what I can do. And with more opportunity, like I can really provide a lot. So I'm really happy for Ray, but I think Tri-State was a big winner of the draft for sure. Going into the week 1 matchups, there's a ton of good matchups to start off the season. Trilogy is going to kick us off as the defending champions, playing against enemies, which is a team that everyone seems to always be excited for, and they kind of never live up to the expectations or the hype that you hope for. But they have a kind of an experienced roster now. The champions are 2-2 in the first game of the season when defending their title. But there's a lot of good games. I think a lot of good matchups. Any matchup that you're most excited to see, or do you find maybe the most interesting?
I think it's between Power and Three-Headed Monsters in the first week. I think they would probably round out the top 3 teams in the league for me, with Trilogy being number 1. So that's just kind of a no-brainer. And the true rookie I'm most excited about is probably Akil Mitchell.
Yeah.
I watched some tape on him, and he's just a pure, just sort of dunking threat. He just loves to be around the paint. He's got great hands down there. He's super athletic, and he's always looking to get at the rim. And he's just got kind of that gift for knowing how to set up passing angles for his teammates to find him. It's almost like spacing, but it's a different kind of spacing.
Yeah.
Instead of providing targets out on the wing, he's really good at making himself open in a target. Using movement and verticality, you can throw it up, and he'll be able to get it where a lot of guys can't. And that's such a good passing team between Royce White and TJ Klein, and obviously Glenn Rice is a playmaker too. and Coutinho is as savvy as they come. He'll make the pass if it's there.
Yeah, 100%. I like that. I like that too. Plus it's a rematch of last year's semifinals last year, where I feel like three-headed
Yeah, that
monsters
was
had a clear run to the title game until late in the season.
yeah, and I think that game was 51-49. And it was an absolute duel between Murphy and Glenn Rice.
Yeah, that's going to be a solid game too. I'm kind of excited about I think it's I don't have the matchups right in front of me. I keep getting these mixed up. Threes Company's playing Ghost Ballers. I'm excited about Killer Threes and TriState and how that goes down. It feels like both games are so pivotal for these teams because it feels like TriState, they were the number one seed a couple of years ago. They started off really well last year and then kind of fell flat toward the end of the season. Whereas Killer Threes, it feels like it's been a little bit of a rougher start the past couple of years, and then they figure it out late in the year when it's almost a little too late and the options are a little bit limited when trying to get into the playoffs. I'm really excited to see those two teams go at it. Tri-State's kind of revamped roster. Killer Threes kind of has built this culture, bringing it back pretty much everybody except for one player, adding Javier Carter. What do you think of that matchup to kind of round out week one there?
I like it a lot. I think I mean, I've talked about Tri-State and how excited I am for them.
Yeah.
Killer Threes can be easier to sleep on just because I think, like you said, I think they're a culture team. I think they just kind of outwork you, and I think they just put pressure on you, and they move the ball and just kind of do things. And that was terrible. They do all the right things and they play really hard. It's very much a Charles Oakley model team, and then Frank Nitty's personality trickles down to the rest of that team. So they can be easy to sleep on, but they are always competitive in every game and every season.
Agreed. For you, I know that you mentioned Killer Threes is kind of a team that people sleep on. Is there any team that you find really intriguing that you feel like maybe enough people aren't looking into or talking about, or maybe on paper they don't look like they might be the best team that you feel like could make a run at a playoff?
All these teams are super interesting. I mean, I just put power rankings. I wrote them up last night, so they should be published soon on the website, big3.com. And it was just a bummer to put the teams on the bottom because you're like, this team could still be really good.
Yeah.
All the way down to Ball Hogs. You're like, if Landro's back, I like this team. And so you say the same thing with. So I think Three's Company is really interesting because they had such a change mid-season where Beasley and by extension the rest of the team just started moving the ball. I think he had 2 assists in the first 3 games of the season or something crazy like that. And then right in the middle of the season, he had a 7-assist game, and they just started playing so much better.
Yeah.
And they looked like as good as any team in the league. They just kind of ran out of time. We had a 6-game regular season effectively, so that will happen. And also they start doing something that's so interesting, which is they were spotting guys up at the 4-point circles as part of their sets, not just sort of a spur of the moment thing. They're let's Beasley and Chalmers specifically were we can make this shot. Let's make the defense guard us all the way out here and let's start our plays from here. Which, if that can start happening, it will, and I think it can. It will get really fascinating. You don't really want to see. I'm not sure how much we want to see 8 35-footers a game get taken.
For sure.
But if we can make it, so the defense has to cover 35 feet constantly, and with 3 people going inside that, that will open up so much and it'll get so interesting.
Yeah, I agree too. And I think Nancy talked about that maybe when she was on the show, just how the strategy has kind of evolved a little bit, and eventually a team will kind of base their roster off being more of a shooting team and have that ability to do that. So it's really interesting that you noticed that Three's Company did that, because I didn't even notice, but they were a very much a threat from shooting 4-pointers. Michael Beasley would bust out 2 late in the game to make it competitive. Or Mario Chalmers early in the game was hey, let's just throw up a couple and see if they go in. And he's a knockdown shooter as well. So I like that pick too. And their addition of Hollis Thomas I thought was interesting. He's not really a guy that you see too much on social media or anything. And he was an NBA guy for a long time. So obviously I feel like a lot of what he was known for was shooting and defense. So adding another guy like that, a 2-way player to that team, I think will be really interesting to see how they mesh, because yeah, like you said at the end, they were kind of figuring it out. They were meshing at the end of the year, and just time ran out. So if they can figure it out early on, they could be really scary going into the early part of the season.
Yeah, I do like one thing is that unlike the basketball tournament, like you were talking about, where they kind of theme teams, we're all from Syracuse or whatever. like you're saying, the big three has kind of gone away from that a little bit. It's not just people and their friends anymore. The talent level is too high. But even still, like teams have these personalities.
Yeah.
Aliens being the most obvious example, but even like triplets have all have a lot of NBA experience. Three's Company, they have a lot of they're just kind of a very swaggery team. Killer Threes, like I just talked about, they're just hard nosed and hard minded and will love to outwork you. Ghost Ballers, especially this season, are just huge. They're the sort of the giants of the league, just physically gigantic. Three-headed monsters will just outscore you every game and be happy about it. I mean, just these kind of enemies is a lot of NBA vets and a lot of talent and they play the game how they like to.
Yeah, they like to have fun for sure.
Yeah, they're also a team with a lot of swagger and definitely a distinct identity.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited to see your power rankings. That's something I've been contemplating just doing my own personal ones. But I'm excited to see yours as you've like, kind of gone into depth a little bit more, probably more than I would, and just like seeing just seeing how you rank them because like you, like I'm a little like worried to put them out sometimes just because I don't want to put anyone at the bottom. Everyone seems like they
Yeah,
can be so competitive. It's just a matter of time and place.
yeah. I can give you some peace. I can give you some spoilers if you want to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to know like maybe like who are your top four teams? I know you've mentioned three-headed monsters, you've mentioned trilogy, you mentioned power. Who do you have as your four teams in the playoffs currently?
Um, right now I put it into tiers. So my first tier is trilogy, three-headed monsters, and power.
Okay.
And then the team I have joining them on the sec would be TriState, who would be on the top of the second tier. And then in that second tier, I have Three's Company and Aliens. Tier three is Killer Threes, Triplets, and Bivouac. And then tier four is Ghost Ballers, Enemies, and Ball Hogs. And again, I can see anything happening with any of those teams from the bottom two tiers. I mean, triplets alone. What if Joe Johnson is back
Yeah.
in full Joe Johnson mode? They're right back up as contenders. Um, Gerald Green could be a league MVP easily, and they've got a lot of size. And they lost some tough games last season. They could have easily been in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They lost that. Yeah, they were on the wrong side of that epic Elijah Stewart game,
Yeah.
which was probably the game of the year in the regular season, certainly.
Yeah.
Um, off the top of my head. And then Ghost Ballers, they're giant and they're talented. Chris Johnson is 6'11" with a 7'9" wingspan, and he's a wing. Like
Yeah, he's like a guard.
yeah. Um, Elijah Stewart and Isaiah Austin on the perimeter and in the middle for Ghost Ballers or enemies, sorry, are both so good. Elijah Stewart could be an up and coming guy who's in the MVP conversation. And Isaiah Austin is a super talented big man who is a super athletic giant.
Yeah.
And then Ball Hogs, again, Barbosa, when he's healthy, absolutely an MVP candidate. So who's around him? So yeah, I mean, there's just such a good argument for all of these teams.
Yeah. There really is. And I was going to ask you about triplets, but it sounds like it's mostly just putting triplets in that middle tier based off you're not sure what kind of Joe Johnson will return, coming into the 2023 season. Is that fair to assume there?
Yeah, and like I said, they've got a lot. They are very veteran heavy. A lot of guys with a lot of NBA experience. They're not the most athletic team. They got the Pargo brothers. A lot of their size and athleticism comes in Larry Sanders, who's been a huge force in the league before.
Mm-hmm.
But they're definitely not huge and they're not super athletic. There's a lot of skill and a lot of experience though.
Yeah.
But without a guy sort of driving the engine, like if Joe Johnson's not ready to kind of come back and take the car keys, I'm not seeing exactly where the shot creation is coming from. Who's going to put pressure on the paint from the perimeter. So that's harsh to look at.
Yeah, no. I completely understand. Hey, like triplets definitely fell apart without Joe Johnson. So, but they are a force with them. I don't feel like we got to see enough of like what that team was going to be following the loss to Ball Hogs, like in week 3. Like we didn't really get to see how that team was going to transpire if there was a full season. So I am interested to see how triplets comes out too. Last team I want to ask you about, and then we'll get into some player specific things, Ball Hogs.
And I do want to say Lisa Leslie's such a good coach.
Yeah, she's a really good coach. I feel like she comes so prepared just week in and week out, whether whoever her personnel is.
Yeah, no, she's not there to play around or lose.
At all. Last thing I want to ask you about is Ball Hogs. They are, hopefully they get to bring back Barbosa. Then they'll have Jody Meeks. They added Jeff Harris as one of their co-captains, who I did mention before. But then they also had the number one pick, added DeJuan Summers, and they got Jalen Johnson in the second round, who's kind of like a mini Jokic from based off some of the highlights I saw in playing in the G League here the past few years. What do you think about Ball Hogs? I've been trying to get some different perspective from people in the league, maybe that watch the league. People I don't feel like are still super high on them, but would love to hear your thoughts on what do you think of this Ball Hog team and if you think they have a chance this year.
I mean, I'm looking at the roster and I can definitely envision them being a real playoff team. But I mean, they had a rough go of it just bad luck last season. In week one, I think Barbosa wasn't there in week one because the Warriors had won the championship and he was coaching them at the time. He came back in week two, but it didn't really have his sea legs yet. In week three, I think they looked great, if memory is serving.
They beat triplets, yeah. That was the
week. They beat triplets. And they looked like world beaters. And then I think week four, Barbosa goes down, right?
Yeah, I think it was.
Or is it week five?
It was against Aliens. I remember they were about to go on a run, and then he fell. I fell, and then
he just made some spectacular. He just weaved through like the entire defense too.
Yeah.
And Jody Meeks is a guy who is as good of a shooter as you have in the league. And Jeff Harris is a bona fide big man he's one of the big guys who can. It is not easy to stay on the floor as a true center in the Big Three, and Jeff Harris, he's athletic enough to do it and has the motor to do it.
Yeah.
Just because everyone, you see that it's this happening in the NBA as well, but sort of players are just guards are getting bigger and big men are getting smaller, and everyone's sort of becoming 6'8" or 6'9". It's just like it's happening. I think even more in the Big Three. Those guys are really tend to be the glue and the backbone of teams. So guys like Earl Clark, those swingman forwards, and Juan Summers certainly fits that. And Jalen Johnson is a versatile guy with size who can guard multiple positions.
Yeah, 100%. I'm excited to see what they do. We'll see if they can get, at least have a positive record. I think that's the biggest thing. They've been close to getting that positive record, but even like having a record over 500 and then making a run at the playoffs, it'd be cool to see. And I think as much time, I think Rick Barry's a great coach too. It's just a lot of bad luck, like you mentioned. So
I was about to say he also does not come to lose or play around.
No, it's got to be tough going for him. I mean, he's like 78 competing in pickleball leagues for like people in his age still. Like he's a competitive guy.
He's like nationally ranked. Yeah, and he just picked it up.
Crazy.
And I think he quit golf for it, and he was like a semi-pro level golfer.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, he's still a really competitive guy. So I'm sure like all the losing has got to kill him. You see him on the sidelines when they mic him up or whatever, like just how upset he gets with like certain calls or like certain things that players do. So I hope for his sake, like they can get it done this year. But looking like a really solid field out there with Big Three teams. Want to get just a couple player predictions. First off, would love to know, like, is there a matchup that you'd like to see in a bring the fire scenario? Not, I know that the schedule is like not completely completed yet, and you don't have to go through the whole schedule and just see like which team's playing who. But is there a bring the fire matchup that you'd love to see or a scenario that would be very intriguing to you?
Ooh, I like that question. Let me see here. Let me see just on Ghost Ballers. Ghost Ballers are a lot of fun guys. I'd actually love to see Mike Taylor offense and Michael Beasley defense.
Ooh.
I think with Bring the Fire, because it does happen pretty quickly. So the on court matchups, I'm more excited by sort of matchups of personalities there. And Mike Taylor going at Michael Beasley would be a lot of fun.
That's a good way to look at it. The personality traits there. I'm thinking more skill set, but like those two guys going at it, like a lot of adrenaline rushing there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think when Michael Beasley gets pushed, that's when you see a really fun side of Michael Beasley, and Mike Taylor will push you.
Yeah, to your limits for sure. I think Ghost Ballers looking for a little revenge too, because Three's Company absolutely dominated them, at least in the first half of that game they had last year. So maybe a little revenge. I'm sure Mike Taylor will come out, swinging with a lot of vengeance there.
Yeah, yeah. What game? Yeah, I'm trying to remember that game.
It was like a week 5 game. I think like Ghost Ballers was trending down, Three's Company trending up, and it was just a game where like Michael Beasley had like 10 assists or something. He was
Yeah,
just dishing and diamond, and they were just hitting every shot. So
yeah. No, when this team gets it, like when Three's Company gets it, and they're starting to get it, they are scary and they are a lot of fun.
I had them as the best team last year, solely off who they had and Michael Beasley. I thought he was going to make that much of a presence, and I felt like at times they were the best team.
You must be feeling good after the first half of the season.
I was feeling.
I mean, no, the first half of the first game of the season.
Oh, I was feeling incredible. I was like, he's making this look easy. And then the second game comes and they're struggling. Third game, they lose a tight one. I'm like, oh man, like, yeah, they're gonna have to figure this thing out. It's not as easy as I thought it would be. Even when Michael Beasley made it look easy for the first half of week 1.
Yeah, I think you can definitely argue that maybe they were set back a little bit by that first half because he just kind of kept trying to get back that lightning in a bottle. I think he was a little bit cold, and like I said, he was not passing. He was not getting assists. Then once he
Yeah.
started passing, ball movement doesn't slump as easily, and they just looked like a whole different team.
Yeah, 100%. Speaking of potential MVPs in the league, do you have an MVP prediction, or do you have a couple of guys that you think, for you could win the MVP this year?
I think it's for me it would probably be Isaiah Briscoe. Um, if he's just dead. He's right in his prime. He's such an athlete. On his worst day, he gives you so much. He's not really a volume scorer, volume shooter, I should say. He just knows so many ways to put the ball in the basket. And if he is making his jump shots, it's over. That's the one thing on him is he is not the most consistent outside shooter and can struggle from outside the paint. But even on those days, he is one of the best players in the league. And when he's making the jump shot, like it's just over.
It's crazy to think that we still kind of sleep on Briscoe. Not, I shouldn't say we, but just like we as the public watching the Big Three, you see big names with our prominent faces, and Briscoe's just come in his 2 years, won 2 championships, the 4th man of the year, and just absolutely balled out. And I still feel like he doesn't get the credit he deserves, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Jared Jack steps down, Briscoe steps right in, and they don't miss a beat.
Yeah, no problem at all. Okay, I like that pick. That's a little bit outside the box, I feel like, and I really like that. I think that's kind of the ascension Briscoe's going at right now, to be honest.
And there's a little bit of hope because I hope we actually do continue on what we started last year, which is kind of the Big Three making its own stars. Which I think nothing. I don't mind watching Michael Beasley or Jalen Green or Joe Thompson or Rashard Lewis at all. It's super fun. But when you get guys who are sort of making their names in the league, that's just an added level of fun.
I agree.
All things being equal, it makes it a little more fun. So you're seeing it with guys like Kevin Murphy and Isaiah Briscoe, who just didn't have huge careers in the league, but can absolutely play with these guys who did.
Yeah, that's a good point. Elijah Stewart's a good one too. I think if he has a full season, doesn't get enough. Well, you want him to get as many opportunities as possible, but if he has a full season in the league, I think he can make a case too for being our most valuable player. So we'll see. On the flip side of that, a lot of new guys, like I mentioned, 10 new guys in the league. You have a rookie of the year prediction, and I'm still trying to figure out the rookie of the year thing, because it feels like if you're a captain, you don't necessarily get counted as like a rookie or like voted under scored under like the rookie of the year votes. Maybe I could be wrong about that, but it feels like I feel like Gerald Green would have been the rookie of the year last year, but maybe just because he didn't play as many games.
Yeah, I mean, Glenn Rice was not at all a hard pick, as I remember it.
That's true.
Yeah, he was one of the best players in the league and one of the leading scorers. Yeah, I mean, he was the 3rd leading scorer.
Yeah.
And Power was a playoff team.
Yeah, not to say Glenn Rice was a bad pick. It was more just like, if Gerald Green has many games, could he potentially been that? But is that also part of the criteria of like, hey, if you can get your team to continue on throughout the season, is that does that lead you to being the rookie of the year, maybe over someone who didn't get to?
Again, I like Shannon Shorter a lot. He's just such a grinder, and he puts up numbers wherever he goes. He's been everywhere, and he is going to be one of sort of the few, kind of the only true guard on Bivouac, who outside of him they have a lot of length and a lot of athleticism, but just not as much sort of ball handling and creation. Joe Green can make his own shot very easily. Just he can shoot it whenever he wants, and he can put it on the floor, obviously. But I think in terms of pure shot creation, he's going to give them something that's very important, and he's going to put up numbers. So if Bivouac has a big year, I can see him being a part of that. Probably again, the guy I'm most excited about is Mitchell over on Power, but I'm not sure he's going to be a big numbers guy. I just think he's going to. I think even on possessions where he doesn't touch the ball, he's going to help them. So you have to keep a guy sort of in the paint tagging him.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's that sort of inverse spacing. And Devin Ebanks is a heck of a player. I remember being at his summer league back in 2010, and we were like, we're like, this guy's gonna be like the next Trevor Ariza or like a player like that.
Yeah.
He just couldn't really find his shot during his literal outside shot during his time in the league. But now that he's a veteran, he's rounded things out. I think he's just going to impact the game in every way. And you just had him on Javier Carter. I like a lot. And you were just
He's an
talking to him,
interesting
right?
player. Yeah. I just had him on last episode. He's a really interesting piece to the Skiller Threes team as well, just what he can do.
Yeah, I mean, he's another guy who, when it was time for maybe his draft, his game just wasn't well rounded yet, and now it is. But he still really likes to dunk.
Yeah.
I've seen him. He's not really he's not like a shockingly high flyer, but he can definitely dunk, and he definitely likes to. And yeah, but I mean, he used to be an incredible athlete. Like I didn't see a ton of tape, but like in his senior year of college, he blocked 2.5 shots in 24 minutes a game.
That's crazy.
That's insane. So he's still yeah, and he's a big dude who can definitely move. So
Yeah.
it's probably going to come down to which teams make playoff runs. Just like kind of in the NBA, these things can be a little team dependent, and that's true here. So yeah, it'll be interesting because as I've tried to go through and watch tape these guys, look at their stats all around the world, it's hard to predict how they're going to do when they're all playing in the same league under these new rules in 3-on-3 basketball with each other, because there are a lot of basketball leagues out there.
Yeah, 100%. And the level of play is obviously like different in all these different leagues as well. So it's definitely tough. Like I never realized how great Kevin Murphy was going to be, and he's been co-rookie of the year and the MVP in his 2 years. So you just never know. Speaking of three-headed monsters, I'm a little curious because they have two new rookies. They added Jordan Adams, they added Rob Dozier. From what I've heard, I mean, I've seen Jordan Adams in college. He was really good, so I'm kind of excited about him. But I've heard Rob Dozier is kind of like a skinnier, lanky version of Reggie Evans who can stretch the floor a little bit more. So, just for people listening to this, maybe just something to keep an eye on, like with the new backcourt for three-headed monsters, and then a new front court for three-headed monsters as well with their two new additions. So I'm excited to see what those two guys do.
Yeah, I mean, Dozier's just a workhorse. Like you said, in college, he was part of that crazy Memphis team with Derrick Rose and CVR and Joey Dorsey. And he's another guy that's just, as he's gone around the world, he's rounded out his game. So you do see this with a lot of guys who had maybe the size and the athleticism when they were 22, when it was their draft window, and now they've added those skills that if they had them back when they were 22, things maybe could have gone differently for them. But now a lot of them have just almost all, if not all, of the athleticism they had when they were that age. But now they have well-rounded veteran games. So again, it just goes back to the level of play going up, um, because a lot of these guys are better versions of who they were when they would have been in their rookie years at 22, 23. You know, it's there's just almost. I know we've had a rule about an age floor
Mhm.
um, before, but even if we didn't, these these guys are just all veterans have who were at one point. A lot of them were athletic dudes or big dudes, and have all gone around and rounded out their games and done what they needed to do to be professionals in high level professional leagues for a long
No,
time.
no doubt, no doubt. Should be a really good season. It's going to be a fun, I'm sure, a lot of fun for you covering it. John, the last question I want to ask you is just what are you most excited for about this year? It could be on the court, it could be off the court. What are you looking forward to the most?
Uh, these big stadiums are going to be really fun to see, and I'm really excited for. It feels like this is we didn't add that many guys this year, and there aren't that many big names, so there's not a lot of shakeup. So it just feels like all these teams and all these players are just going to be kind of a year better and know each other better, and it's going to be more veterans. And I just feel like the level of play is just going to go up. I feel like this is just the league just becomes more and more competitive. Um, we don't have gimmicky players where it's like, I wonder if he's got anything left. I wonder what's going on with him. Like, if you have a spot on the big three, it's because you can play at a really high level and you're expected to play at a really high level. Um, and so I think
100%.
the league just sort of solidified that in this offseason. And so I'm excited for these big stadiums to see just how competitive of a league this has become.
Yeah,
Well, at the same time, it is a very flashy and fun. We do have 4 point shots and bring the fire challenges um, and musical guests and all these fun things. But when you get down to it, this is a really competitive league full of really competitive players.
no doubt, no doubt. I'm equally as excited to see these guys kind of back in action. Also, too, just kind of like the continued veterans coming back and like kind of solidifying themselves on these teams and getting the chance to play each other and hopefully go win a title. So, just want to say, John, appreciate your time. Really enjoy your writing and all the articles you publish out. So make sure you're checking out his work on big3.com. John, is there anywhere else where our audience and our viewers, listeners can find your work?
I am on Twitter at John Krolik. So that's probably the easiest way to find me when things come up. Um, yeah.
Perfect. Well, John, thanks for your time. Looking forward to the season. And maybe we can check in with you mid-season, see how things are going. All right. So we not only get one interview this week, we get two interviews this week. We had a writer on from the Big Three to talk about the overall objective standpoint of the league. But today we're honored to have on the CEO of Ball Hogs, Uncle Jon. Appreciate
What's
your
up?
time and welcome to the
Yep.
show.
Thanks. It's an honor. It's a blessing. So many things going through my mind right now. When I woke up this morning, I was like, we're on the fourth man. We made it, folks. Mom, check me out. I'm on TV, baby.
Hey, that's the biggest honor I've ever had from any guest. So I appreciate that you guys that you feel that way coming on the show. But I'm more honored to have you on. I've never had a CEO on. We've had players, we've had coaches, never had a CEO. So I'm super excited to dive into honestly the conversation around the Ball Hogs this year, but more so just excited to talk about some of the initiatives you have as well, maybe off the court. But maybe let's start here. Obviously Krause House last year when everybody was investing into different teams through the NFT tier tokens. You guys invested into Ball Hogs. How did you specifically become the CEO of Ball Hogs?
That's a fun question. So I was working like normal corporate startup jobs, and in April of 2022, I got laid off from a job, and like I should say conventionally, I'm not a great employee. I think like I have to like care a lot about something to exert a lot of effort towards something. And most of the time with jobs in general, it's like you're just kind of showing up. So when I got laid off, I decided I was not going to like, for better or for worse, I wasn't going to do any job that I either thought I was going to suck at or that I didn't think was cool. and definitely made searching a little more overwhelming. And I'd made a connection in a previous role with a guy who was really into Web3 and into decentralized organizations. And he knew that I loved sports. And so he was like, hey, you should check out Kraus House. So I did, and I joined the Discord. And the day that I joined the Kraus House Discord was actually the day they announced that they had bought the Ball Hogs. And for those that don't know about Kraus House is a decentralized organization, and our goal is to have the first ever community owned and operated NBA team. So whether that looks like having a majority stake in an NBA team or even a minority stake, that's kind of the goal. And our community is just full of people who love basketball and want to be a part of it. And so whatever your interest might be, whether it's like graphic design or podcasts or governance, because crypto's big governance thing, it's complicated. I still don't really know what's happening. You basically like apply your like skills towards basketball and towards our like main goal, which is to own a team. So I joined, and they announced that they purchased the Ball Hogs. And there's like a lot of excitement around owning a team, and especially one of the big three that plays like in real life. And I started thinking like, oh man, how I was really inspired, and I still always am, by the Savannah Bananas. Obviously, like what they're doing in baseball is huge, and I've been to games, and it's like it like speaks to everybody's inner fan. And I was like, man, I feel like doing something like what they do for baseball and basketball would be so much fun. So I just started like putting together different ideas. I was unemployed, so I had free time, and so I was just like, let's see what they do with this. So I just started getting ideas of like what it could look like to have like a fan experience. And at Kraus House, with like work and projects, you create proposals, and with these proposals you like kind of list out like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, this is how long I want my like work stream to last, this is how much I want it to be, here's like a detailed list or a detailed description of what is going to entail in this work stream. And then the Kraus House community will vote on it using their like native Kraus House crypto tokens. So I put this proposal forth, and people liked it and voted for it, which was cool. And then I guess part of the NFT sale is whenever you bought it, each owner would assign a chairperson, a president, and a CEO. So the community put up, like, I didn't put the proposal up, but somebody nominated me to be the CEO, and then they nominated our two founders to be the president and the chairperson, and it got voted. And so then I was a CEO, went from being unemployed to a CEO. And granted, like, it is a bit of a glorified title, but like, you better believe I put it on my LinkedIn, dude.
Still, yeah, you got to.
Yeah.
What a
Yeah.
interesting dynamic too, that like the founder and president almost like work under you when it's like within this part of the organization, like within, this is your lane, and in this case you have authority over the founders. That's
Well,
such like a weird dynamic.
they kind of babysit me, if I'm being honest. But but I was like a new guy. They had to keep me in check. But I think president and CEO or president and chairperson are above the CEO, because they would be like the board.
Oh, okay, I see. Yes, you would be
Dude,
right then. They
you
can
got to
vote
get
you
your
out.
yeah, you got to get your corporate stuff figured out, bro. Because
I'm
coming from a CEO to just a guy, yeah, that's not how
Yeah, my
corporate world
bad.
works, brother.
Yeah, my bad. I forgot the board is the most important piece, even though the CEO is doing all the work. It's all
Yeah,
about.
I answer to them.
Fair enough. Fair enough. The CEO is a cooler title, though. Gotta admit
It's
that.
sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get like messages. I get like messages on LinkedIn, like, I guess like bots just like scroll through CEOs, and they're like, "Hey, we're doing this thing for CEOs and leaders." I'm like, "This is not for me." Chill.
I'm a different type of CEO, if you know
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean. I feel that. That's really cool. So, I mean, what a success story too. I mean, just to go from being unemployed to like putting a couple of proposals, initiatives together. It's all about right place and right time. And now here you are. The Ball Hogs might be one of the more engaged audiences and communities, and definitely one of the fan bases that shows up week in and week out. You guys did a phenomenal job in the first season, not only just showing up for games and supporting things on the court, but as well as some of the things you started off the court. How would you like assess your overall first year, as CEO of Ball Hogs, and just like how would you assess everything and how things went in the first year?
10 out of 10. Perfect.
Is that the corporate answer, or is that your genuine answer?
No, it's I would rate things. So my expectations are the 10, and that's always like unrealistic and unachievable.
Sure.
So I'm always having to like kind of talk myself down to like be cool with like a 6 or 7. I think that's life. That's kind of like my life philosophy. It's not like settling. It's more like if I'm constantly shooting for a 10 which I can never achieve, then I'm just always bummed out because I'm like, why can't I get this perfect? So if I can control what I can control and the outcome looks like, 6 or 7, that's pretty good.
It's like
If I'm playing baseball, I'm batting 700.
It's great.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I feel like in general, I didn't know what to expect last season because I'd never been to a Big 3 game. I didn't know like what our parameters were. So like with the Big 3 buying the teams, like we still kind of work in tandem with the league. Like we don't have control over any of the player stuff or any of the coach stuff. A lot of like the utility or like the benefits of the NFT are like ownership like. So we get tickets and we get like VIP stuff. And then we get like access to like events and being able to like work with the fan stuff. So really just like plugging that directly into the fan experience was pretty straightforward. And so the first season we had a pretty small budget, and that was fine. Like my background is in summer camps, like in college and stuff. And I did like program activities, which were like the games and events. And we were always operating on a very tiny budget for that. And so kind of switching that over to basketball wasn't that difficult. My main goal was to figure out how to convert or adopt fans to be Ball Hogs fans from the second they walked up. And I figured the answer to that was like by giving them an experience and by like meeting every fan where they were as they walked up. And so we had a tailgate outside the arena, and we had like games and kids could come and paint signs. And it really was just a cool avenue to get to know the people as they showed up to the stadium. Like they're in the Big 3, since these teams don't have cities, it's people just kind of show up and they aren't rooting for a specific team. So it really is like a blank canvas for getting somebody to like your team. So yeah, we just like the second people showed up, we just tried to like welcome them into the fold and be like, hey, this is our tailgate. You're a ball hog now. Welcome. But like kids don't like, they didn't have any expectation when they showed up. And so our main target audience was like the kids between the ages of 7 to 15 who are just showing up with their parents to watch basketball and giving them something fun to do outside the stadium and in the stadium, and like getting to know them and their families. It was just like, it was a really fun experience just to make new friends. And then like if you've ever been to a professional sports game, like when you kind of sit in your stadium or when you sit in your seat, it's a little unfamiliar because you're surrounded by strangers. But then once the game starts, like your inhibitions kind of drop and you're like, oh, these people, we're all kind of here together. No one is going to think I'm an idiot for cheering because we're all rooting for the same thing.
Right.
So let's go crazy. And so once we got in the stadium, we had a bunch of 5-gallon buckets that I found on Craigslist, and I would give kids buckets and sticks, and they would like bang on the buckets, and we would do cheers. And my goal was just to like be the first person to look like an idiot cheering and screaming their face off. And if one guy does it and he's not getting ridiculed or like arrested, then it's probably cool for everyone else too. And so the people would just kind of like loosen up and like have fun, and it was really enjoyable. So that was like the first season. I feel like we really made a difference as far as opening up the doors for what fans could experience at a Big 3 game, and like having dedicated Ball Hogs fans during each game. And like, granted, it kind of sucked that we only won one game, but I will say for the Ball Hogs performance, every game we played, it wasn't a blowout. Like it was pretty close every week. And so I feel like I I think our wins and loss record didn't accurately reflect the talent we had on the team. I think the guys are great basketball players and they're great dudes. And I'm really excited about this year.
Yeah, same here. And we saw the fan base grow throughout the season for the Ball Hogs. So I think you guys did a wonderful job. And I love the perspective and the kind of the angle you guys took. And yeah, just to go back to like the record reflecting, I feel like Ball Hogs and Big Black kind of went through similar challenges throughout the year where they felt like they were in these games and just something happened. For you guys, you obviously took a huge hit after coming off a big win to triplets, losing your best player after he does some crazy move, weaving and bobbing through these defenders and ultimately scoring a basket. And the next play, unfortunate news happens. But it's all in the past. Hindsight's 2020. It seems like the fan base was really receptive to what you guys were doing and what you guys were trying to build. How did the players and even the coaches maybe receive that? And maybe even someone like Brian Scalabrine, who's there week in and week out reporting now as a BIG3, colleague or journalist, but is obviously pretty much, I could say, the face of Ball Hogs in a sense, with him being the OG captain.
Yeah, Scal is awesome. I got to know him pretty well, we would run into each other at this coffee shop by the hotel every morning before the games. And so we'd sit and talk for 30, 45 minutes before heading to the stadium. And through talking to him, I kind of got the download on what the league had been like historically, before 2022. And I kind of learned from him, it helped me kind of assess where to take the direction of the fan section each week and how to turn it into a more electric and fun environment for everybody. And he was really supportive and he was cool to get to know. We're very different people, and have just breaking bread together was a fun way to get to know each other and understand each other. And then the players were really receptive. That was another goal of mine at the start of the season, was to dream world. I would have loved to have had the ability to make funny videos and do fun walk up, walk in music with the guys, but just due to injuries and the different players. And then I really think it wasn't until week 4 or 5 where I finally was tied enough with all the guys that I could make those asks. But then by the time week 4, week 5 came around, the league there was a lot going on. And so it was kind of hard to implement all those pieces. So really I could just control what I could. And we did some interviews, but the players in general were awesome to get to know. Stacey Davis is my guy. He and I became pretty good pals. Will McDonald, another great dude. He's the man. We both connected over he lives in Florida and he is a redneck, and I live in Alabama, and so we would joke around about redneck stuff, and we kept in touch a pretty good deal in the off season too. Every time he was getting in his pickup truck, he would send me a video of him singing Florida Georgia Line in his truck. And he has a big farm. Another fun story about Will, I have a American Bulldog dog from when I lived in Nashville. We got this puppy, and the breeder, there's a Facebook group of all the people that got dogs from this guy, and one of the guys in the group had to put up for adoption his dog, and he was in Tampa, which is where Will lives. And so I texted Will, I was like, hey, you want this dog? And Will ended up adopting this dog. So we have a dog. Yeah, we have a dog from the same bloodline. And we'll send each other pictures of our dogs and stuff. So I'm pretty bummed out he's not gonna be back this season, as well as Stacy. Those guys were probably the two that I got closest to. And then Ty Lawson was another great guy. He and I would sit in the lobby.
Short-lived, but he seems like
too
a funny
short-lived
dude. Yeah.
He's the man. He's pretty quiet, but he's just introverted. So we would sit together in the lobby of the hotel, and we would both be working on our computers and just talking to each other. It's almost like being study partners. And we kept in touch in the off season. And then Jody and Leandro wasn't around much, and so I didn't get to know him super well. And then Jody was around a good bit, and we talked some, but Jody's a competitor, man. He shows up every week, and he's he's locked in. Like he's trying to get to the stadium. He's trying to do his job. He's trying to win. And then after that, he's like recharge mode. So we had a couple of like team dinners where us and Rick and the players and then the folks that worked with the pig pen, like as like assistants, we would go out. We went out to eat like 2 or 3 times and got to talk to everybody, and that was cool. And but like I think Jody like had a family too, so a lot of times after the game he was going back to Atlanta to be home. But
Yeah,
I mean he's great dude. Like
great
I
guy for
hope to
sure.
I hope to get to know him a lot better this season. And then Rick is in the same boat. Like he was super involved. I think that was kind of the appeal to being to us choosing the Ball Hogs as the team we were gonna buy into. Because I think the league knew that we wanted to try a bunch of different like experimentation and be really involved. And they kind of pointed us towards the Ball Hogs, knowing that Rick's like generally open to try anything.
For sure.
And we've done a lot of cool stuff with Rick. This season for the draft, we have a guy in Kraus House. His name's Christian, and he is like an analytics guru.
Is he the
And
guy that used to play with Stacy at
he
Pepperdine, or they
is.
went to school together or something like that? There's
Yep.
some kind of tie
Yep.
there. Okay.
Yep. So he and Stacey are buds. But he did analytics. We had like the list of draft players for the season, and we got the list like 24 hours before the draft. And Rick had some stuff going on and didn't have time to do a lot of research. And so Rick called me when he got the list, and I was like, dude, chill. Let me send this off. We'll get you a report. So Christian did analytics and made like a full list of like players we should target based on our needs. And we got Jalen and we got DeJuan, and those were like our top 2 guys. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a win.
Yeah, DeJuan was incredible last year. So I felt like he was kind of a consensus #1 pick if you really watched the Big 3. But for anyone listening to this or even watching this and is not involved with the pig pen, Kraus House, or Ball Hogs in any way, this is what you could be a part of in future games and just for this season. So I felt like that was a great.
We love you. We'll accept you with open arms. Like if you want to come to a game, DM me. I will get you there. We want you in the pig pen. We have a bunch of free T-shirts we're gonna throw in the stands this year. Oh yeah, we're ready, dude.
That's sick. Yeah. No, I know you weren't pitching. You were just kind of sharing your experiences, but feels like a great pitch for anyone who's not involved yet. Like if you're at a game, like make sure you're involved with the pig pen. It'll be a fun time. It'll be a good time. Before we talk about basketball, like on the court things and just kind of your expectations for the year with some of the new guys, would love to know just like some of your initiatives for off the court things, kind of continuously giving back to the community and building this fan base. It seems like you took some great strides in year 1. What's some of the initiatives and things that you're doing for year 2?
This year's going to be really fun. We only had like a month to prepare last season, so we were just kind of throwing things together, but we had a significant amount of time before the season to prep. So this year, we have one of our Kraus House community members, goes by Deluxe, and she is our CMO. I appointed her as CMO, so she put that on her LinkedIn, obviously.
Got to.
Yeah, but her background is in like doing marketing stuff for like big corporations, and now she just loves sports and is really into like Web3 stuff. And so she and I have worked pretty closely together, and we have a bigger team this year of like people helping. And so our main goal was to find some sponsors. We have another budget that was allocated by Kraus House to run the season, but we were looking for partners that were in like the sports or Web3 space. And so we partnered with the Near Foundation. They are a blockchain group who helped. They worked with Steph Curry to do his like NFT thing. And so we're in the process of developing a like BIG3 pick'em website where fans can like do like a pick'em style game, and then like say Jody scores a 4-pointer, there will be like a brief window where they can mint like a free NFT, and we'll have like a leaderboard on like who is winning this pick'em game, and we'll have some pretty big prizes. So that's like and it's all through this Near Foundation, and they've been really cool to work with. So we have some fun like games for fans, whether you're in the stadium or not in the stadium. And then as far as giving back to the community, we have partnered up with all of the Big Brothers, Big Sisters organization and the Boys and Girls Club of Americas for all of the major cities that we're visiting this summer. And so through we have a amount of tickets that we have access to through our NFT sale, and we are donating all these tickets to these organizations and packing the pig pen with these folks. And so like we're really excited. They've been really fun to work with, and that like kind of goes back to our whole ethos of like giving the fans an experience and then tapping into the community and like being able to bring people to basketball games who may not always get to go to basketball games. My kind of goal this year is like when they're in the stands, I want them to feel like, this is straight from the bananas, but I think this is clutch. But like, I want them to feel like they are like ripping us off. Like I want them to kind of be like, oh, we get a t-shirt. That's cool. Or like we get like swag on the like regular basis. That's pretty cool too. So we have like a lot of fun little giveaways. We've also partnered with In the Lab. They're cool. Like basketball YouTube
social media
app.
Brand.
Yeah. And we have we have some merch that is going to be like available for purchase. So we have a t-shirt through them that's going to drop pretty soon. That's very cool. I designed it, been brushing up my Adobe skills in the off season.
Nice.
And then we also have a hat we're designing that this design you see in the background is going to be like on the bill of the hat. And yeah, we'll have that for sale. I'm trying to think of other, I've got a long list, bro. I don't know if you're ready, but we also partnered with gotsneakers.com. We're doing like a sneaker drive at every stadium so people can bring in their old kicks and donate them. And that goes to just like saving landfill space from overused shoes, and then like gives back to the community, to those who need shoes. So we're really excited about all that stuff.
Your CMO, it sounds like she's done a great job just getting a bunch of partners and
incredible
ways to get the community involved and give back to the community as well.
For sure. Her, and then I should shout out Shani. She goes by Shani. She is also like does a lot with our nonprofit. We have a nonprofit division at Krause House called All In for Sport. And she's worked with us too and has been like a huge connector. So nice. We have a new website. Dude, I'm just listing things off. We have
this is great. Y'all are killing it.
I'm plugging a little bit. We have a website that offers like VIP and courtside experiences for folks if they want to buy those. Yeah, you can do that. It's on our website, ballhogs.club. Go to the website. You can buy, that's where all the merch and stuff can be bought off or like away from the stadium too. So we're ramping up a good bit this year, and we've also like we're working with the Young Three, which is like Big Three's official community outreach division, and we're doing an event in New York. We're doing like a hoops clinic. There's a lady named Yvette who's a basketball teacher. She has a like a podcast called Face Behind the Dream, and she has been doing hoops clinics. So we're going to do a clinic and then turn that clinic into like a combine and have like a 3-on-3 kids tournament that the Young Three is going to be throwing on. If you're not going to be in New York, you should be in New York, because I think us and then some of the other team owners, we're kind of planning like a whole Big 3 weekend. The folks from Three's Company are going to do like a party thing that's going to be fun. So get to New York, Anthony.
I'm gonna do my best for sure. Okay.
But hey, I'm done plugging. I'm sorry for rambling. I feel like I talked for a long time.
No, this is perfect. I'm the one that asked you the question about initiatives. That's true. You just responded to the question. But below in the description, I did. I tend to do that sometimes. But I'll plug the website below, ballhogs.club. Is that correct? I'll plug it in the description so that we all don't forget it. But yeah, make sure you check that out. There'll be a ton of information, I'm sure, out there, and a ton of ways to win a bunch of different prizes and giveaways. So make sure you guys are tuned in there. All right, let's talk about on the court stuff. You mentioned Jalen Johnson. You mentioned DeJuan Summers a little bit. feel like DeJuan Summers was a pretty easy pick. I know that there was a couple guys in question of like, will they be in the draft? Are they going to be picked up as co-captains? But when DeJuan was still available in the draft pool, I felt like again, it was a consensus pick. Like there's no doubt. Fourth man of the year last year, had a great season with TriState. But just talk about your new additions and what you think they'll bring to the team. I know that there's been a couple of changes as well, or I should say a change as a co-captain. You brought in Jeff Ayers as co-captain. So maybe you can talk a little bit about your thoughts on the new addition, and then maybe what went into even just adding Jeff as a co-captain. I know Will's a big loss. It's a big Ball Hog staple. But what went into maybe adding Jeff, and then thoughts on your new additions as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough how sad I am that Will and Stacy aren't back. Those were my guys, kind of. So that, and Ty as well. Like all three of those dudes are out, like off the court. They're just stand up people, and I'm super glad to know him. Leandro sourced Jeff. Okay. Our main goal this year was like a dream player would be a big wing who can shoot three. And so Leandro knew Jeff previously and brought him on board. And then our draft picks, we had a list of 10 or 12 players that we were targeting. Top 3 was 1, DeJuan, 2 was Jalen, 3 was bringing Stacy back. And DeJuan was just, he was an obvious pick. Like he put on a clinic every single week with TriState. Was it TriState triplets?
Yeah, it was easy for him. I
get the two of those mixed up. It was TriState. So it wasn't like, it was kind of an easy choice. It was a tee up. It's like we got first pick. He's fourth man of the year. But like, yeah, his numbers speak for himself. But we're really excited about Jalen. He's new to the league. He was just in the draft pool, and our analytics guy was just looking at all the players that kind of fit under our category of young, tall wings who could shoot the three. And Jalen is playing currently for Motor City in the G League. Had a huge year with them. I think he shot like 35 or 40% from the three, 6'9" or 6'10". So, and he's young, so he's like right what we were looking for. And that all came from our analytics guy. And so Rick was like really excited about this list that we brought him. And just watching some of Jalen's highlights from the G League too, like you can just see it. Like he's a passer. He's an incredible passer.
Great passer.
Team player. Like I think he just gets it. And I'm really curious. I'm always curious to see like what translates over from 5v5 to 3-on-3 basketball. But
sure,
I think passing the ball and shooting the three are like the two most important things in this league. And a lot of our new guys can do that, which I'm pretty excited for.
Yeah, I would say versatility is a big thing. Obviously, we see in the NBA, there's a ton of like everybody wants a 6'8" to 6'10" wing that can shoot the ball, handle, facilitate, also score at will. And I feel like that's no different in 3-on-3. I think the difference is like versatility is just so key. Like there's not very many like niche spots or I should say niche positions necessarily, like niche skill sets, the way I put it. So you don't just want some guy that can shoot the three, but then can't do anything else. Like that's his main thing. So I think you guys did a good job. I was going to actually plug in my boy Jeff here from G League TV. He's got a great post on Jalen where I think he dubbed him maybe the G League Jokic. I could be wrong there, but that's a great place to look at Jalen's highlights. He looked incredible. And this is, I think, when he was with Iowa, maybe the Iowa Wolves, but still, nonetheless, like I think you got incredible talent in Jalen. And I feel like youth is a little underrated, right? Like I feel like a lot of guys definitely want veterans for sure. And we see a lot of those even with some of the new additions. But I feel like youth is a little underrated and looking for guys that are a little bit younger, have younger legs and can maybe not necessarily go up and down the court, but playing a fast-paced game in 3-on-3 and getting to 50 sometimes can wear you out. And we've seen that, over the course of however many seasons, some teams getting off the hot starts, kind of slowing down toward the end of the game. So I think you made some incredible additions. What are your thoughts on just like, you have a pretty sizable team now. Like Jody and Leandro are definitely going to be probably the main ball handlers there. Maybe you run a little DHO with Jalen, as well as maybe even DeJuan. But it's a pretty like lengthy team, lanky team that you have there. And I've actually talked to a few people just on kind of getting their thoughts on different teams in the league and how we're a little bit more well balanced. But I don't know if everyone's like a huge believer still in ball hogs, even with the new team. What would you just say to maybe any critics out there on why you feel like this is going to be a team that makes that first playoffs, gets this team to over 500 this year? And then just like, how much do you feel like the size was important to you guys within your, and picking up your, I guess, like, or assembling this roster?
Yeah, I mean, to the haters, I say we want all the smoke. Like,
Love it.
This kind of happened last year too. Like, unfortunately, the smoke ended up choking us a little bit, but like, you know, I'm just going back to the same strategy. But like, I feel like this year, like there was considerable thought and effort put into who we drafted. Rick is really excited about what's happening, and like so are the players. And like, I mean, if you just like on paper at least, like things look really good. And yeah, I'm not worried about the haters. Like,
I love it.
See us on the court. We'll take care of it. You're gonna have a hard time getting in the paint. We hope that you're gonna have a hard time with our tall guys putting up threes. So I'm not like, to say I'm worried about it is an overstatement. I really feel confident about this year. I think the odds of us being over 500 look good. It's an entirely new set of guys, so I think the most important thing is going to be like locking down the team dynamic in practice and like getting to know each other. But I think there's something to also be said about just like team camaraderie, and I think like it's in the same vein of building like fan camaraderie, and that builds a good fan team. I like, my hope this year is to like kind of bring the guys together and rally everyone as like friends and teammates. And I'm hoping that injury bug stays away from us.
For sure.
I need to find some wood to knock on. Here we go.
I can do it for you here. I got you right here.
Got you. This is my change bucket.
Okay, nice.
Injury bug be gone. But like, I think if you look at every, like, I feel like there's a pretty consistent theme among teams that do well in any sport. Like if they're all friends off the court, it helps a lot. And I hope this year the guys will kind of like let Kraushaus come in and like build team camaraderie. But as far as on the court stuff that they control, I think the talent is there. So I'm really excited. We I forgot to mention Joy. We brought on Joy. She rules. She worked with us last year because she's local to Dallas. But she is so smart with basketball. Like that's her thing. She can, I saw her argue basketball with Rick and like toe to toe, like just keeping up with him. So like she knows her stuff. She is really funny. If you don't follow Joy D'Angelo on Instagram, her basketball commentary is hilarious and like pretty spot on. So she is the official face of the Ball Hogs this year for us. But she and I got to talk to Jalen last week and get to know him a little bit too. And like, dude's ready. I'm so excited to work with him. So I can't say enough things about how excited I am for this year. I really feel like this is our year to be better than what we've been. And at the very most, this is our year for the championship.
Yeah, I would say that I'm trying to be as objective as possible each year I go into it. Obviously, we
know we're your favorite, bro. It's fine.
I've made a lot of connections with a bunch of different players on different teams. Here's the thing, though. I'm always like deep down rooting for the teams that haven't made the playoffs yet. So, you know, like last year, I was a big advocate for Aliens, even if it was a little dicey how they made the playoffs, like big advocate for them getting in. That doesn't change this year. Ball Hogs, the Bivouacs of the world. Like I'm hoping that we can see first timers in the playoffs and not just someone's got an off trilogy out there thrown here. Speaking of just kind of around the league, your guys' first game is going to be against Aliens. Thoughts on your week one matchup? And then I don't know how much you've kept up with every other team. Maybe the analytics guys have done that. But would love to know your top 4 teams, just predictions for this year.
That's a good question. I think it's going to be a good game. I think the Hogs come out on top. Obviously there's some bias there for sure. The Aliens were good last year. Who all is returning from the Aliens?
Yeah, so they're having DeSean, their captain. I believe Iboshev is coming back as a co-captain. But they have, from there, everybody else is new. So they have a new guy in Kosya. He's a young 25-year-old German kid. Then they drafted Giannis Tima. Spent a little time with the Magic, I think, or maybe with the Lakeland Magic in the G League. But he's originally a Latvian born. And they brought back, or they didn't bring back, but they brought Alonzo Gee in, who was played with triplets and bit by it previously. So they have an interesting team too, but they're obviously a big loss with Osmanis, who played for them last year, and then also DeSean Stevens, who's over at TriState.
Yeah, Las Manas is a man. I really like him a lot.
Good
dude. We talked a lot of shit to each other, like for fun. Like it was always like joking.
Yeah.
We trolled him a little bit last year on Instagram, and that was really funny. Like I deep stalked his Facebook and found a picture from like 2008.
No way. That's hilarious.
And I posted it on Instagram, and he was like, dude, what? Why did you do this? It was really funny.
He's a funny dude. He just got a great opportunity that he couldn't pass up. So understandable.
No, good for him. Yeah, candidly, I like have been so busy preparing. I haven't like spent a lot of time looking at other teams. So I'm just going to use this opportunity as to blow more smoke, but I'm not worried about it. We're going to win.
Doesn't matter who the top 4 teams are.
It
Ball Hogs
doesn't
will come
matter.
out number 1.
Yeah, I'm not concerned. I think if the Ball Hogs perform like they performed last year, like just game wise, not like wins and losses wise, I think we're going to put up we're going to put up good numbers. We do put up good numbers, and we have a lot of fight in us. So yeah. And then this year, I think our talent speaks for itself. So no further comment.
No doubt. Well, John, this has been a great way. And I think for those listening for the first time, or those not knowing a lot about Ball Hogs, a great introduction to the Ball Hogs, but just overall a great conversation into kind of the constructive build of the Ball Hogs brand. Like, I love what you guys are doing. Keep doing great work. I'm excited to see what happens not only off the court as you continue to build, but also on the court as well. And thanks for the time, and good luck. And on Sunday, week 1.
Yeah, we're excited. See y'all out there.
All right. Those were our interviews with Big 3 writer John Krolik, as well as Ball Hogs CEO Uncle Jon. Just want to give them a huge thank you to people that were willing to come on the show a week, the week before or the week leading up to the actual season opener of the Big 3. I mean, can't thank them enough. Just a lot of great perspective there. Just different perspectives, right? Like, we've had a lot of fortunate opportunities to have a ton of players on, some coaches on, some different personalities on here, but get someone who's been riding off the league is a little bit more in depth. And then too, just to get to see somebody who's a little bit more ingrained, literally a CEO for one team who all they thinking about is one team and thinking about this Ball Hogs team. Really cool just to hear their perspectives. And so appreciate those guys for coming on. Just want to remind everyone, make sure you're following on Instagram and on Twitter. I think those are going to be really important leading up to the season and throughout the season. Twitter is going to be a ton of updates. Week in and week out, doesn't matter where I am. I make sure to provide those updates as best I possibly can, as well as Instagram. That's going to be where you're going to get any kind of report or breaking news. I'll make sure to post that. So make sure you're following at Fourth Man Pod. Again, if you want to see the visual version, different types of content throughout the season on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, hitting that notification bell. And thank you again to Believe. Should be a great week 1. I'm super stoked. I hope you guys are as stoked as I am. Feels like a long time coming every time we get to this part of the year, a long off season, longest off season in sports, as we've always said. And we're just a few days away from another great season in the Big 3 and seeing how this thing plays out. So thank you guys for listening. Hope you enjoy week 1 as much as I do. I will see you guys next time.